Hi guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Hi. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a connect, dot, an epiphany, a mind-blown moment, a new book to read, a new author to explore, artwork, full sparkly skulls. I love skulls. You can check that out at Allykatkreations211.com. I also do oracle readings. All that fun stuff is down in the description of this video. There's links if you want to help me. That would be great. I went on a job interview the other day. I'm not sure if I got the job yet. I don't know when I'm going to hear back. I've been checking my email like a crazy person, which would shift things because I need income. Things are getting a little hairy around here, but that's okay. I'm confident the universe has my back. I'm going to be putting out a spiritual soul advice in the next 2 days. I'm still getting a lot of downloads and I'm re-listening to some things that I'm now connecting a lot of dots to concerning what's incoming. So be on the lookout for that. Today, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, because he's awesome. Today we're going to read Bacon, Shakespeare, and the Rosicrucians. This should be highly interesting since we have rumors that Shakespeare wasn't one person, it was multiple. So we'll see what is brought forth here. Yeah. The present consideration of the Bacon-Shakespeare-Rosicrucian controversy is undertaken not for the vain purpose of digging up dead men's bones, but rather in the hope that a critical analysis will aid in the rediscovery of that knowledge lost to the world since the oracles were silenced. Side note, I was one of those oracles. It was W.F.C. Wigston who called the Bard of Avion Phantom Captain Shakespeare, the Rosicrucian Mask. This constitutes one of the most significant statements relating to the Bacon-Shakespeare controversy. It is quite evident that William Shakespeare could not, unaided, have produced the immortal writings bearing his name. He did not possess the necessary literary culture for the town of Stratford, where he reared, contained no school capable of imparting the higher forms of learning reflected in the writings ascribed to him. His parents were illiterate, and in his early life, he evinced a total disregard for study. There are in existence but 6 known examples of Shakespeare's handwriting. All are signatures, and 3 of them are in his will. The scrawling, uncertain method of their execution stamps Shakespeare as unfamiliar with the use of a pen, and it is obvious either that he copied a signature prepared for him or that his hand was guided while he wrote. No autograph manuscripts of the Shakespearean plays or sonnets have been discovered, nor is there even a tradition concerning them other than the fantastic and impossible statement appearing in the foreword of the Great Folio. A well-stocked library would be an essential part of the equipment of the author whose literary productions demonstrate him to be familiar with the literature of all ages, yet there is no record that Shakespeare ever possessed a library. Nor does he make any mention of books in his will, commenting on the known illiteracy of Shakespeare's daughter, Judith, who at 27 could only make her mark. Ignatius Donnelly declares it to be unbelievable that William Shakespeare, if he wrote the plays bearing his name, would have permitted his own daughter to reach womanhood Mary without being able to read one line of the writings that made her father wealthy and famous. The query also has been raised, where did William Shakespeare secure his knowledge of modern French, Italian, Spanish, and Danish, to say nothing of classical Latin or Greek? For in spite of the rare discrimination with which Latin is used by the author of the Shakespearean plays, Ben Jonson, who knew Shakespeare intimately, declared that Stratford actor understood small Latin and less Greek. It is not also more than strange that no record exists of William Shakespeare's having ever played a leading role in the famous dramas is supposed to have written, or in others produced by the company of which he was a member. True, he may have owned a small interest in the Globe Theater or Blackfriars, but apparently the height of these thespian achievements was the Ghost in Hamlet, in spite of his admitted affairs. Shakespeare seemingly made no effort during his lifetime to control or secure Holy shit! That's annoying. Skipping word from the plays bearing his name, many of which were first published anonymously. As far as it can be ascertained, none of his heirs were involved in any manner whatsoever in the printing of the first folio after his death, nor did they benefit financially therefrom. He had been their author. Shakespeare's manuscripts and unpublished plays would certainly have constituted his most valued possessions, yet his will, while making special disposition of his second best bed and his broad silver gilt bowl, neither mentions nor intimidates that he possesses any literary productions whatsoever. So sorry, guys, there are some words I cannot get out of my mouth physically. I'm going to attempt it again. Remuneration, possibly. When there's certain syllables that are together, it is near impossible for me to project. So I do apologize. It's very frustrating. While the folios and quartos usually are signed William Shakespeare, all the known autographs of the Stratford actor read William Shakespeare. Does this change in spelling contain any significance heretofore generally overlooked? Furthermore, if the publishers of the first Shakespearean folio revered their fellow actor as much as their claims in the volume would indicate, why did they, as if in ironical allusion to a hoax which they were perpetuating, place an evident caricature of him on the title page? Certain absurdities also in Shakespeare's private life are irreceivable. While supposedly at the zenith of his literary career, he was actually engaged in buying malt, presumably for a brewing business. Also picture the immortal Shakespeare, the repute author of The Merchant of Venice, as a money lender. Yet among those against whom Shakespeare brought action to collect petty sums was a fellow townsman, one Philip Rogers, whom he sued for an unpaid loan of 2 shillings, or about 48 cents. In short, there is nothing known in the life of Shakespeare that would justify the literacy and literary excellence imputed to him. The philosophic ideals promulgated throughout the Shakespearean plays distinctly demonstrate their author to have been thoroughly familiar with the certain doctrines and tenets peculiar to Rosicrucianism. In fact, the profundity of the Shakespearean production stamps their creator as one of the Illuminati of the ages. Most of those seeking a solution for the Bacon-Shakspere controversy has been intellectualists. Notwithstanding their scholarly attainments, they have overlooked the important part played by transcendentalism in the philosophic achievements of the ages. The mysteries of superphysics are inexplicable to the materialists, whose training does not equip him to estimate the extent of their ramifications and complexities. Yet, who had a Platonist or a Kabbalistic or a Pythagorean could have written The Tempest, Macbeth, Hamlet, or the tragedy of Cymbeline? Who but one deeply versed in Parcelian lore could have conceived a Midsummer's Night Dream? Father of modern science, remodeler of modern law, editor of the modern Bible, patron of modern democracy, and one of the founders of modern Freemasonry, Sir Francis Bacon was a man of many aims and purposes. He was a Rosicrucian. Some have intimidated the Rosicrucian, if not actually the illustrious Father CRC, referred to in the Rosicrucian manifestos. He was certainly a high initiate of the Rosicrucian order, and it is his activities in connection with this secret body that are of prime importance to students of symbolism, philosophy, and literature. Scores of volumes have been written to establish Sir Francis Bacon as the real author of the plays and sonnets properly ascribed to William Shakespeare. An impartial consideration of these documents cannot but convince the open-minded of the verisimilitude of the Bacon theory. In fact, those enthusiasts who for years have struggled to identify Sir Francis Bacon as the true Bard of Avon, or Avon, might long since have won their case had they emphasized its most important angle, namely that Sir Francis Bacon, the Rosicrucian initiate, wrote into the Shakespearean plays the secret teachings of the fraternity of RC and the true rituals of the Freemasonic order, of which pay order. It may be discovered that he was the actual founder. A sentimental world, however, dislikes to give up a traditional hero, either to solve a controversy or to right a wrong. Nevertheless, it can be proved that by unraveling out the riddle, there can be discovered information of practical value to mankind. Then the best minds of the world will cooperate in the enterprise. The Bacon-Shakespeare controversy, as its most able advocates realize, involves the most profound aspects of science, religion, and ethics. He who solves its mystery may yet find therein the key to the supposedly lost wisdom of antiquity. It was in recognition of Bacon's intellectual accomplishments that King James turned over to him the translator's manuscripts of what is now known as the King James Bible, for the presumable purpose of checking, editing, and revising them. The documents remain in his hands for nearly a year, but no information is to be had concerning what occurred in that time. Regarding this work, William T. Smedley writes, "It will eventually be proved that the whole scheme of the authorized version of the Bible was Francis Bacon's. The first edition of the King James Bible contains a cryptic Baconian headpiece. Did Bacon cryptographically conceal in the authorized Bible that which he dared not literally reveal in the text, the secret Rosicrucian key to mystic and Masonic Christianity?" Sir Francis Bacon unquestionably possessed the range of general and philosophical knowledge necessary to write the Shakespearean plays and sonnets, for it is usually conceded that he was a composer, lawyer, and linguist. His chaplain, Dr. William Raleigh, and Ben Jonson both attest his philosophic and poetic accomplishments. The former pays Bacon this remarkable tribute. Quote, "I have been induced to think that if there were a became of knowledge derived from God upon the man in these modern times, it was upon him, for though he was a great reader of books, yet he had not his knowledge from books, from some grounds and notions from within himself." Sir Francis Bacon, being not only an able barrister, but also a polished courtier, also possessed that intimate knowledge of parliamentary law and the etiquette of the royal court revealed in the Shakespearean plays, which could scarcely have been acquired by a man in the humble station of the Stratford actor. Lord Verulam, furthermore, visited many of the foreign countries, forming the background for the plays, and was therefore in a position to create the authentic local atmosphere contained therein. But there is no record of William Shakespeare's ever having traveled outside of England. The magnificent library amassed by Sir Francis Bacon contained the very volumes necessary to supply the quotations and anecdotes incorporated into the Shakespearean plays. Many of the plays, in fact, were taken from plots in earlier writings, of which there was no English translation at that time. Because of his scholastic acquirements, Lord Verulam could have read the original books. It is most unlikely that William Shakespeare would ever have done so. Abundant cryptographic proof exists that Bacon was concerned in the productions of the Shakespearean plays. Sir Francis Bacon's cipher number was 33. In the first part of King Henry IV, the word Francis appears 33 times upon one page. To attain this end, obviously awkward sentences were required, as anon Francis. No Francis, but tomorrow Francis, or Francis on Thursday, or indeed Francis when thou wilt, but Francis. Throughout the Shakespearean folios and quartos occur scores of acrostic signatures. The simplest form of the acrostic is that whereby a name, in these instances Bacon's, was hidden in the first few letters of lines. In The Tempest, Act 1, Scene 2, appears a striking example of the Bacon acrostic. Quote, begun to tell me what I am, but stopped and left me to a bootless inquisition, concluding, say not yet, end quote. The first letter of the first and second lines together with the first three letters of the third line form the word Bacon. Similar acrostics appear frequently in Bacon's acknowledged writings. The tenor of the Shakespearean dramas politically in his harmony with the recognized viewpoints of Sir Francis Bacon, whose enemies are frequently caricatured in the plays. Likewise, their religious, philosophic, and educational undercurrents all reflect his personal opinions. Not only do these marked similarities of style and terminology exist in Bacon's writings and the Shakespearean plays, but there are also certain historical and philosophical inaccuracies common to both, such as identical misquotations from Aristotle. Evidently realizing that futurity would unveil his full genius, Lord Verulam, in his will, bequeathed his soul to God above by the oblations of his Savior, his body to be buried obscurely, his name and memory to men's charitable speeches, to foreign nations, to succeeding ages, and to his own countrymen after some time had elapsed. That portion appearing in italics, Bacon deleted from his will, apparently fearing that he had said too much. That Francis Bacon's subterfuge was known to a limited few during his lifetime is quite evident. Accordingly, stray hints regarding the true author of the Shakespearean plays may be found in many 17th century volumes on page 33. Bacon's cipher number of the 1609 edition of Robert Crawdry's Treasure or Storehouse of Similes appears the following significant allusion. Quote, like as men would laugh at a poor man, if having precious garments lent him to act and play the part of some honorable personage upon a stage. When the play were at an end, he should keep them as his own and brag up and drown in them, end quote. Repeated references to the word hog and the presence of cryptographic statements on page 33 of various contemporary writings demonstrate that the keys of Bacon's cipher was his own name, words playing upon it, or its numerical equivalent. Notable examples are the famous statements of Mistress Quickly in The Merry Wives of Windsor. Hang hog is latent for bacon. I warrant you the title pages of the Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia and Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen, and the emblems appearing in the works of Alcatus and Wither. Furthermore, the word, holy crap, honor if it, okay, it's like one of those really large ass words that a bunch of words are. I'm not going to even try to butcher that. The law, it starts with honor, Faba, Blitude, and ends with bus. I'm just going to go there. Appearing in the fifth act of Lover's Labors, lost in a Rosicrucian signature, as its numerical equivalent to 87 indicates. Again, on the title page of the first edition of Sir Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, Father Time is depicted bringing a female figure out of the darkness of a cave. Around the device is a Latin inscription, "In time, the secret truth shall be revealed." The catchwords and printers' devices appearing in volumes published, especially during the first half of the 17th century, were designed, arranged, and in some cases mutilated according to the definite plan. It is evident also that the mispaginations in the Shakespearean folios and other volumes are keys to Bacon ciphers for re-editions, often from new type and by different printers, contain the same mistakes. For example, the first and second folios of Shakespeare are printed from entirely different type and by different printers 9 years apart. But in both editions, page 153 of the comedies is numbered 151, and pages 249 and 250 are numbered 250 and 251 respectively. Also, in the 1640 edition of Bacon's The Advancement and Proficiencies of Learning, pages 353 and 354 are numbered 351 and 352 respectively. And in the 1641 edition of Du Bartas, Divine Weeks, pages 346 and 350 inclusive are entirely missing, while page 450 is numbered 442. The frequency with which pages ending in numbers 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54 are involved he noted. The requirements of Lord Vermillion's bilateral cipher are fully met in scores of volumes printed between 1590 and 1650, and in some printed at other times. An examination of the verses by L. Digges, dedicated to the memory of the deceased author, Meister W. Shakespeare, reveals the use of two fonts of type for both capital and small letters, the differences being most marked in the capitals T's, N's, and A's. The cipher has been deleted from subsequent editions. The presence of hidden material in the text is often indicated by needless involvement of words. On the 16th unnumbered page of the 1641 edition of Du Bartas, Divine Weeks, is a boar surmounting a pyramidal type. The text is meaningless jargon, evidently inserted for cryptographic reasons and marked with Bacon's signature, the hog. The year following publication of the first folio of Shakespeare's plays in 1623, there was printed in Lüneburg a remarkable volume on cryptology avowed by Gustavus Salenius. It is considered extremely probable that this volume constitutes the cryptographic cryptographic, key to the great Shakespearean folio. Peculiar symbol head and tail pieces also mark the presence of cryptograms. While such ornaments are found in many early printed books, certain emblems are peculiar to volumes containing Bacon Rosicrucian ciphers. The light and dark shaded A is an interesting example, bearing in mind the frequent reoccurrence in Bacon's symbolism of the light and dark shaded A and the hog. The following statement by Bacon in his interpretation of nature is highly significant. If the sow with her snout should happen to imprint the letter A upon the ground, wouldst thou therefore imagine that she could write out a whole tragedy as one letter? The Rosicrucians and other secret societies of the 17th century used watermarks as mediums for the conveyance of cryptographic references, and books presumably containing Bacon ciphers are usually printed upon paper bearing Rosicrucian or Masonic watermarks. Often there are several symbols in one book, such as the rose cross, urns, branches of grapes, and others. At hand in a document which may prove a remarkable key to cipher beginning in the tragedy of Cymbeline, so far as known, as has never been published and is applicable only to the 1623 folio Shakespearean plays. The cipher is a line and word count involving punctuation, especially the long and short exclamation points and the straight and slanting interrogation points. This code was discovered by Henry William Beers in 1900, and after it has been thoroughly checked, its exact nature will be made public. No reasonable doubt remains that the Masonic order is the direct outgrowth of the secret societies of the Middle Ages, nor can it be denied that Freemasonry is permeated by the symbolism and mysticism of the ancient and medieval worlds. Sir Francis Bacon knew the true secret of Masonic origin, and there is reason to suspect that he concealed this knowledge in cipher and cryptogram. Bacon is not to be regarded solely as a man, but rather as the focal point between the invisible institution and a world which was never able to distinguish between the messenger and the message which he promulgated. His secret society, having rediscovered the lost wisdom of the ages and fearing that the knowledge might be lost again, perpetuated in two ways. One, by an organized Freemasonry to the initiates of which it revealed its wisdom in the form of symbols. Two, by embodying its arcana in the literature of the day by means of cunningly contrived ciphers and enigmas. Evidence points to the existence of a group of wise and illustrious fratres who assumed the responsibility of publishing and preserving for future generations the choicest of the secret books of the ancients, together with certain other documents, which they themselves have prepared, that future members of their fraternity might not only identify these volumes, but also immediately note the significant passages, words, chapters, or sections therein. They create a symbolic alphabet of hieroglyphic designs. By means of certain key and order, the discerning few were thus enabled to find that wisdom by which a man is raised to an illumined life. The tremendous import of the Bacon mysteries is daily becoming more apparent. Sir Francis Bacon was a link in the great chain of minds which has perpetuated the secret doctrine of antiquity from its beginning. This secret doctrine is concealed in his cryptic writings. The search for this divine wisdom is only legitimate motive for the effort to decode his cryptograms. Masonic research might discover much of value if it were turned to its attention a certain volumes published during the 16th and 17th centuries, which bear the stamp and signet of the secret society, whose members first established modern Freemasonry, but themselves remained as an intangible group controlling and directing the activities of the outer body. The unknown history and lost rituals of Freemasonry may be rediscovered in the symbolism and cryptograms of the Middle Ages. Freemasonry is the bright and glorious son of a mysterious hidden father. It cannot trace its parentage because the origin is obscured by the veil of the superphysical and the mystical. The Great Folio of 1623 is a venerable treasure house of Masonic lore and symbolism, and the time is at hand when the great work should be accorded the consideration which is its due. Interesting there. Though Christianity shattered the material organization of the pagan mysteries, it cannot destroy the knowledge of supernatural power which the pagans possessed. Therefore, it is known that the mysteries of Greece and Egypt were secretly perpetuated through the early centuries of the church, and later, by being clothed in the symbolism of Christianity, were accepted as elements of faith. Sir Francis Bacon was one of those who had been entrusted with the perpetuation and dissemination of the arcana of the superphysical, or originally in the possession of the pagan hierophants, and to obtain that end either formulated the fraternity of RC or was admitted into an organization already existing under the name and became one of its principal representatives. From such reason, not apparent to the uninitiated, there has been a continued and consistent effort to prevent the unraveling of the Baconian scheme. Whatever the power may be which continually blocks the efforts of investigators is an unremitting now, as it was immediately following Bacon's death, and those attempting to solve the enigma still feel the weight of its resentment. A misunderstanding world has ever persecuted those who understood the secret workings of nature, seeking in every conceivable manner to exterminate the custodians of the divine wisdom. Sir Francis Bacon's political prestige was finally undermined, and Sir Walter Raleigh met a shameful fate because their transcendental knowledge was considered dangerous. The forging of Shakespeare's handwriting, the foistering of fraudulent portraits and death masks upon a gullible public, the fabrication of spurious biographies, the mutilation of books and documents, the destruction of rendering illegible of tablets and inscriptions containing cryptographic messages have all compounded the difficulties attendant upon the solution of the Bacon-Shakspere&Rosicrucian riddle. The Ireland forgeries deceived experts for years. Pause. We need to understand that not all documentation is correct. Not all information of tablets, and he, like Manley just spelled that out for all of us, that a lot of books behind me on history and tablets and scrolls and whatever have you, they might have already been Googled, meaning 1984. Back then. Who were the people writing? Who were the scribes? Who were these people, and whose agenda were they portraying is a better question. And this is something I like to tackle on this channel, as I don't like to read just one book and have it to be the one all be all. In all the books, I pluck out the truth for myself. Are you doing the same when you're reading a book? Are you reading it for it being the one and only? Or are you reading it and just deciphering what feels right for you? That's big, because this has been going on for a very long time. Stop being so naive. According to the material available, the Supreme Council of the Fraternity of RC was composed of a certain number of individuals who had died, what is known as a philosophic death. When the time came for an initiate to enter upon his labors for the order, he conveniently died under somewhat mysterious circumstances. In reality, he changed his name and place of residence, and a box of rocks or a body secured for the purpose was buried in his stead. It is believed that this happened in the case of Sir Francis Bacon, who, like all servants of the mysteries, renounced all personal credit and permitted others to be considered as the authors of the documents which he wrote or inspired. The cryptic writings of Francis Bacon constitute one of the most powerful tangible elements in the mysteries of transcendentalism and symbolic philosophy. Apparently, many years must yet pass before an uncomprehending world will appreciate the transcending genius of that mysterious man who wrote the Novum Organum, who sailed his little ship far out into the unexplored sea of learning through the pillars of Hercules, and whose ideals for a new civilization were magnificently expressed in the utopian dream of the New Atlantis. Was Sir Francis Bacon a second Prometheus? It's a good question. Did his great love for the people of the world and his pity for their ignorance cause him to bring the divine fire from heaven concealed within the contents of a printed page? In all probability, the case of the Bacon riddle will be found in classical mythology. He who understands the secret of the seven-rayed god and will comprehend the method employed by Bacon to accomplish his monumental labor, aliases were assumed by him in accordance with the attributes and order of the members of the planetary system. One of the least known but more important keys to the Bacon enigma is the third or 1637 edition published in Paris of Les Images aux Tableaux de Plate. I can't read all that French. Holy shit. The title page of this volume, which as the name of the author, when properly deciphered, indicates, was written by or under the direction of Bacon or his secret society, in one mass of important Masonic or Rosicrucian symbols. On page 486 appears a plate entitled Hercules for you. I don't know how to do French, guys. That's like the worst language for me, besides other such languages. Showing a gigantic figure shaking a sphere, the ground before him, bestrewn the curious emblems in his curious work, Das Bild des Speerschütlers, Shakespeare something or other. Alfred Reund attempts to explain the Bacon symbolism in the Philostrates. Bacon he reveals as a philosophical Hercules, who time will establish as a true spear shaker, Shakespeare. And that will end this. And I know for myself, I went to college and had to read a shit ton of that kind of language and Shakespeare in general, because of the language used back then was very difficult English. And I was up for the challenge because many of the paintings and the things that I studied in school were of other languages and cultures. So I never really got that many good A's in my art history classes because I couldn't spell other languages words right or pronounce them. Yeah, that's a problem. But I made it through college. But it is still to this day a challenge. But I've always wondered the man behind Shakespeare, if that was actually a person. I never thought it was a person. I thought it was many. And it could, for all intents and purposes, be Bacon. One time can only tell, but you know, they still continuously hide a lot of those mysteries, regardless of the secret societies it's attached to. It's another great lie because we are made to read these books and sonnets and plays throughout our years in school, at least here in America, I know I had to read a whole ton of those. And just the authenticity of knowing the real author, knowing the history behind it, and all the falsehoods that come with Shakespeare in general. There's millions of books about that guy. But is it really about that guy, or is it really about Sir Francis Bacon? Or a collective of other souls who shall remain nameless because of the secret societies, all penned different sonnets and plays together to give us something, hidden messages. But just be wary. Make sure you look at your old books and make sure you are understanding that not all knowledge is in fact real, and that a lot of people played around with language in different languages, and then we get the interpreted English type, which is not good. Because I know, for example, when I worked in Manhattan and I was working with some Spanish people, and I took Spanish, I actually did really well. One of the easier languages for me to understand. And the guys would try to figure out how to explain what their thinking was, but they're like, oh, there's no English for that term in my language. Like, he's like, I don't know how to describe such things because in my language, there isn't a transitional way of saying it. Whatever have you. There's a lot of languages that do that, that they have phrases and they have words that aren't transcribable to us, for us to understand. So it's a very interesting, tricky undertaking when we're doing and reading and learning, that a lot of things have been lost in translation, and a lot of things were deliberately fudged in translation to redirect people's thinking. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're getting there. We're the tail end of the book. I love this book. You know, a lot of people poo-poo Manly P. Hall, but he's just giving a perspective. And why not read it to see if that meshes with you? What are your thoughts about Shakespeare? You know, I know a lot of us had to read it throughout our, schooling age, and we didn't understand it much like it. I don't think I really enjoyed many of the plays and sonnets and stuff. Not a fan. But if there's hidden symbology and cryptic things in the verses and in all of the work, cool. Not for me, but maybe for you. Let me know. So guys, sending you each love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protection energy. Please be safe, be seen. I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your week. We're in the midweek. Woo! And I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.